And welcome back to another exciting Blender tutorial. Today we're going to be building out our hollow table and putting in our materials into our scene and making this thing look really cool. Let's do it. All right, so welcome back. So here we are back in our scene. Today's objective is going to be to model the table, but just before we jump into that, there's just one thing I forgot to mention last episode that I've done, and I think I cut it out. I don't know what happened. Anyways, a really important detail that I forgot to point out was about the pipes particle system. You may have noticed this problem in the last tutorial if you were following along and doing it. Actually, they had physics on them, so they were falling slowly out of the roof, which of course is a problem. But if you turned off the physics, it messed up the way they were positioned. It didn't quite look as good. So in that particular case, what I did was I've actually baked it down so it's a bit cleaner. But what I did was I kept all the physics on. So if we go to physics, you can see it's Newtonian. So I didn't actually change all that stuff. I left it. But what I did do to keep it from falling out of the scene was first I turned off, where is it? I turned off, here it is, field weight. So I made gravity 0. So I set that to 0. So now they weren't falling. And then they were moving just a little bit because there was some velocity. So I moved their normal velocity to 0 as well. So now there was no velocity, no gravity. Even though there's physics now, there's nothing acting on it. So it just sat there. And then what I did was I went into cache and I just baked it just so it was nice and clean. It wasn't going to jump around on me. This doesn't matter so much unless you're just going to be using Eevee. If we're going to be going out to VR, then you're going to bake this down anyways. So, but just in case that was catching you up, just wanted to flag that with you. Okay, so let's get started. We'll start working on this hologram table. So I've got this image here of this hollow table from Star Wars. I've got some other ones too. Like this one's really nice, lots of cool detail. But I want to imitate this one here. So it's kind of got this octagonal shape. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sides roughly. It looks like. So let's go ahead and we got our reference object here. We're going to create a new, actually first I'll put my cursor. So 3D cursor to world origin, get that right down in the middle. And then I'm going to hit mesh, new, and cylinder. We want to bring these sides right down till we get, let's see what the octagon looks like. Yeah, I think that's nice. We'll go with an octagon. Okay. Now we can rotate this on the Z, maybe 45 degrees, 15 degrees. I just want it to kind of be lined up with the door. I'm going to get out of rendered mode because it's just going a bit wonky on us. Yeah, something like that. That's pretty nice. Right, and we'll scale it down on the Z because we don't need it to be huge. We'll scale it up so that it kind of intersects the table because we want this, match our scale reference. All right, cool. Now we're going to go ahead and hide our. Actually, I'll bring this top face up. There we go. Now I can hide our reference objects and go back to our reference image. Okay, and so we kind of have this like center point that's up and then it slopes down. And then we've got this slope down to the bottom. So let's take this guy and hit I to inset. And we'll bring it in. So we'll have the inner and outer part of the table. And then I'm going to hit Control R and then grab it on the Z and bring it up. So now we've got those 2 bits. And then let's see what else it does. When we get down on the table, it's pretty flat. And looks like we've got these nice ridge things around and then just a bunch of kind of panels and stuff. And then the center looks like we've got some kind of device that generates stuff. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit and I will inset this one and bring it right down to the center so we can have our center bit. And we might inset this as well and grab this on the Z, bring it up and then inset again, grab it on the Z, bring this one like maybe way down. Like that's kind of cool. I'm going to make another edge loop right there. Just scale that in. That looks nice. All right, that's pretty cool. Then what we can do is we can select, how do we want to do this? Let's select this edge loop and hit Control B to bevel. And just bevel this one. And we'll do the same for this one here. Control B, bevel that. And the same for the center one. Control B and bevel. It's pretty nice. We'll do it for this one too. And this one. Could just shift select all these at the same time and do the same effect, but I'm not always sure exactly what I want to do until I start seeing it. So that's what's going on in my brain. All right, cool. Now we got our hollow table. Now, it's probably a good idea as well to bevel these guys. Creates a lot more geometry for us, but that's all right. Nice. You can see it just creates us this really nice faceted look, which is just a whole lot nicer. Okay, cool. Now I want to create some different materials for this. So I'm going to go here, and this is going to be like our glowing bright material. In fact, I'm going to actually take these guys and treat them like panels. So I'm going to hit I with them selected, bring it down, and then E to extrude, and just grab that on the Z and bring these guys down and then scale them in a little bit. And that's just going to give me a really nice kind of tabled effect. I might bring them up a little bit. It's a bit too much. And with these guys on, I'm going to go here to materials, scroll up, and I'm going to assign our hollow table base material to it. So we'll assign that to there. And then the rest of our object, I will put another material on, and we'll just grab maybe the button base material. That's probably good enough. And put that one first. And I'm going to select all the faces and then select my hollow table and click deselect. Oh, okay, so it didn't work. All right. So I'm going to select everything and I'm going to shift select these guys. And I'm going to click on here and click assign to assign everything, all the faces that are selected to this material. And then I will select all, and then I'm going to deselect this group. And now it's going to leave those selected. And I click here and click assign to assign that to there. So now if we jump into rendered mode, we can now have this hollow table base. The hollow table, base glow, have a little bit of emission to it. And it's going to start looking better. All right, so probably want this bottom one as well to be assigned to this group. So I can assign it there. And that's going to be pretty nice. Might want to put a light kind of right in here, but we can do that in a minute. All right, jump back into edit mode. Now we're going to put some buttons and stuff on here. I want some panels and things. We can use our panel generator for that, or even just duplicate some of these panels that we've already created. So I can grab this one here and hit Shift D, and then just grab it over and rotate that around on the Y. It's pretty messy rotations on my part, but that's all right. I'm just acting quickly to get these things roughly in place so I can refine this as we go. Awesome. Now if we jump into render view, you can see we've got this cool panel with lights right there on our holographic display, which is so cool. I don't know about you, but this is looking Star Wars. It's feeling Star Wars. Looking very Empire though. I feel like we've like really moved into Empire territory, which, hey, maybe that's what we want. I don't know. Just a thought. Okay, now the next thing I want to do is brighten up my scene a bit because I feel like things are a little too dark. So I'm going to go through and grab our floor lamps, the ones that are red, and I'm going to just pop them all up to 30. And then what I want to do is go up to my first tab here, the little camera tab, and I'm just going to go down to the very last one where we have color management, and I'm going to increase my exposure. I'm going to brighten up my scene maybe to about 2. Now we've got an equivalent system in Unreal, so we can do the same kind of thing to get the lighting just right. So this isn't a problem using this here. It's not going to hurt us later on, but this just gives us a little more so we can see a little bit better and brighten up everything without changing the cool atmosphere and tone of our shadows. Now we also want to just improve the quality of our shadows real quick. So we go to shadows. I'm just going to turn ambient occlusion off for now. Shadows, I'm going to pop that up to 4K on the cascade and the cube, and I'm going to hit high bit depth just to give us a little bit more love there for the shadows. Okay, next up, let's go ahead and take this outer ring, and I want to duplicate this and bring one of these up here. So I'm going to Shift D, and then I'm going to grab it on the Z and right up to here, and then I'm going to scale it down and just use it to kind of frame this pipe section in a really nice way. So kind of like that. Yeah, cool. Might even scale it on the Z a bit, thicken it right up. There we go. That looks nice. And then what I want to do is actually you want to take this inner ring and I'm going to duplicate this and I'm going to scale it in just to give us a second layer. And I'll even duplicate it a third time and put one in between the two. And this one I might scale up a little bit on the Z. So we've almost got this like little staircase thing going on. I'm gonna switch back to this view, and now this is gonna mess up my wires a little bit. And it looks like that's intersecting the door as well. So I don't want to go too heavy on it. So I'll just bring this one down, and I'll bring this one down a touch. And that's nice. Now you got this nice, cool stair step kind of thing. These are the kind of things that are really going to flesh your scene out, really make it look alive. So we need to fill it out more and more. And the more you do that, it's just going to get better and better. So the same thing is we can put in a bit more of these boxes. So I'm actually going to add in a few more boxes in the scene with lights. So I'll just do that real quickly, and then we'll carry on. Okay, so I've just added a few more boxes to the scene. It actually just ended up duplicating ones that we've already made and just moving around. This one I popped an array modifier on. I put 2 array modifiers on it just to create that grid look, and I scaled it down. Just, played around, just had fun. Put the little call box that we have here, I put one here on the front, just so we've got that really nice look. So then I've also took the door here and duplicated it. So if I just hide that, I just grabbed this guy here, our door frame object, and just Shift-D duplicated it and scaled it up, basically. So we've got 2 door frames. And it ended up being this really nice look where you've got this like little tunnel, entry tunnel now that goes in to our door. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. All right, great. So you can see already just with those little tweaks, we've really fleshed the scene out now. We've filled the space and we've made it look aesthetically a lot better. Now, next step for us is we're just going to keep this level of polish going. We're going to push it a bit further now and try and get our hollow table looking really good. And then I'm also going to tweak our materials a little bit more. We're just going to keep refining. And this is kind of how I work. I like bounce between things and go, all right, now I'm going to make this look a little bit better. And then I'll make this look a little bit better. And it's a really great way to kind of narrow your scene down and get to the point. So another good thing too is to reuse your geometry. Don't feel like you've got to be modeling everything all the time. So for example, a great idea for us, I think, is to select our hollow table. And I'll just switch back to solid mode and hit Shift-D and then scale it up and then grab it down. And, it's wasteful in terms of geometry, but in terms of just the speed of use, it's worth it. And I think that on a small enough scene like this, it doesn't really matter as much that, this probably isn't the most economic way to do things because all this geometry on the inside that we're not using. But that's cool. Doesn't matter. Reuse it. So yeah, now we've got this nice little platform for our hollow table. So yeah, all right. Now I'm gonna take the shader that we're using for our hollow base table, and I'm actually gonna crank it up. Right now we've got just a gray. I'm gonna put it all the way up to white, and actually I think I'll give it a slight green tint. And we're gonna go ahead and turn on bloom. Now bloom is a really great effect in Eevee. You turn that on. Anything that's super bright is going to add this little glow now to the scene. So if I just turn those handles off, you can see how nice that looks, having just a little bit of glow. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is start bringing some of these materials to life by adding a bit of texture to them. So if we open up our shader editor, and I need to make sure I'm looking at the right shaders. So let's grab the hollow table. So the hollow table has got button base metal as the main texture. Let's see, our floor has door frame metal, and I like that door frame metal. I think I'm going to unify this with the door frame metal. So I'm going to switch this one to door frame metal. Where is it? There it is. All right. Now these are all holding the same material, and that's kind of nice the way it echoes in the design. So I'm just going to add a little bit of noise to this. So I'm going to go over here to I'll just make this a little bigger for you. And I'll move this over and change our position some so you can see. I'm going to go over here to our node editor, and I'm going to create a new noise texture. I'm going to get a texture coordinate mapping node, and I will pop generate it into vector and then factor. I'm just going to send factor to the emission so we can see it clearly. I'm just going to give Eevee a second to render. It processes things. And then we might also grab a color ramp and stick that in between. If you just drop it onto the wire itself, it'll insert it for us. And I'll just pull this up a little bit so we can start to see the noise. I'm going to bring my scale up. It's good. And I'm just going to kind of roughen up the surface a little bit, like just give it a little bit of, just a little bit of wear and tear. That's really all I want to do here with this. I'm not going to do a whole lot more than that. So pull that out of emission now. And so now I can use this to drive things like the roughness, for example. And now you can see if I drag this up, we're going to be able to vary that roughness. Now I don't want it to be perfectly reflectant, which is, it's on black right now. So it's perfectly reflecting the scene. I'm going to pull this up a bit so it doesn't reflect the scene too perfectly. Because it's nice to have a little bit of blurred reflection in our design here. All right, and now I just play around with these guys until we get it's a little too much reflection. I think still back that off. You can see that circle is blurring the further we go towards white. That's pretty good. Okay, the other thing we need to do is we need to turn on our screen space reflections for our scene so we can really see kind of what's going on. So let me open this up. If you go to your little camera tab again for your Eevee render settings, you just turn on screen space reflections. What that's going to do now is you can see we get these really nice reflections in the scene. You're going to see everything that's reflecting. We can really pick out what that looks like. So now what you can do is you can adjust how much reflection you want. So we can blur those reflections by taking this further and further away from black and to just soften that off until it looks good, which that looks pretty good. Yeah, so we just have this subtle variation now, which is nice. That's how you make stuff look real, subtle variation. Always hammering on about that. Okay, great. So that's a little adjustment to that material. And now I just want to take a look at, looks like our pipes. I'm just going to grab the pipe material. What's attached to these pipes? Well, they actually have room ambient material. Oh, no, that's right. I'm looking at the particle group. So I need to go to my pipes. So where are we? Pipes, here we go. Grab one of these pipes. Pipe material, there it is. I'm just going to darken the pipe material. And I will make them really reflecting as well a whole lot so we can pick up these nice glints up there. And I'm also going to take my circle thing and I'm going to scale that up a bit more to hide that section that's in there. And I might duplicate that and scale it in like that. Looks kind of cool. Maybe do one more. All right, and so this one has the room Adobe material, and I don't know, I'm kind of liking this really dark Empire vibe that we got going on. I may just lean into it a bit and knock it down. I think one thing we do need, though, is we need some kind of texture on this. So with our room Adobe material selected, drag this back out, give us room, and I'm going to change my views so that we're looking at the wall. Okay, so with our Adobe material selected, I'm going to create a let's go for a noise texture. Switch it to 4D because we want to have a little bit more, we want to use the W option. I'm going to grab a texture coordinate and I'm going to pipe that in, generated to vector. And then the factor, I'm going to pipe it into the emission so we can see exactly what's going on. And then we're also going to need a color ramp node. Now, there are faster ways to do nodes and materials. There's a great add-on called Node Wrangler you can turn on if you want to learn those steps. They're really great because it can just speed up a lot of these things. They're automated in it, and that's a great way to go. I like to show this so that, for new people, they can learn exactly how it's functioning. I find if you automate too much, especially with extra plugins and stuff, Blender can get really confusing because you don't always have every add-on installed when you're just starting out. So, although Node Wrangler does come with it, but anyways. So I'm just going to give us a nice little texture with this. Let's see what the distortion looks like. That's kind of cool. Move the W a little bit. Probably didn't need the W, but it's all right. Okay, now I like that. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to move this back now, and I'm going to grab we're going to create a bump node. So I'm going to create a bump node, and I'm going to pipe this color into the height. and then this normal into the normal. And I can unplug the emission. And now we're going to get a bump. Now we need to adjust our distance. Pretty sure we need to make it like maybe 10. Something like that. And then our strength, that looks pretty good. Actually, 1's probably fine. That looked good. So now we got this really nice, dense texture on our wall. Sorry, I'm coughing and like sputtering. That's pretty horrible, probably. Let me drink some water. All right, so our scene's looking really nice. That texture really helped. I think it looks cool up in here and stuff. It's really good. I feel like these guys maybe should be a little more reflecting, so let's do that. See what material we've got. We got light fixture material. We might just unify things and drop on our door frame metal. See how that looks. Yeah, that's much nicer. Now it's going to reflect everything. I'll just add that to all these guys. Okay, and I feel like our door now is really starting to look a little bit too noticeable or too different. I might just back off its color as well a little bit to a darker, make it a little more metallic, and drop its roughness down so it starts to reflect the same, but not as much. I want a little bit of difference, a little bit of variation. Okay, so the next thing for us to create is the actual hologram that's going to be displayed in the center bit. Now, I got an idea for this, but to start with, we need to create the material that's going to make this hologram effect. So let's start with something simple that's easy to see. So we're just going to create a sphere. So if you just make sure you're not selecting any of your open, shader editor open. I'll zoom in a little bit on this guy, make sure that I'm not clipping through him, which I was. There we go. All right. Now, this material that we're going to create is it's going to use a couple of different effects. So we'll call this hologram material. I'll zoom in here. And the first node that we want is something called the wireframe node. Now, this wireframe node actually takes the wireframe data of the object and turns it into something that you can use in your material. So if I pipe this into my alpha, you'll see right away that, well, nothing happens because, of course, in Eevee, we need to turn on alpha. So for this material selected, we need to go blend mode, alpha blend, and that will give us a alpha channel. So it's barely visible now. It's because it's so small. But if I turn up the size of this wire, you can see it's actually creating this material where the alpha channel is based on the wireframe. Of course, you could pipe this into anything you wanted. So it's really, really cool. All right, we're going to go ahead and give our object some emission. So let's give it like a teal green color. Something like this, something that looks very hologrammy. And I'm going to turn this down maybe to 0.1. So you can see right away, it's already starting to look like we want it to. Now we could make this even hotter if we click on emission and go to the HSV, which stands for hue, saturation, and vibrancy. Turn your vibrancy up to something past 1, so like 2. And now it's going to be basically glowing even more. So that's how you can get that kind of a look. All right, now let's take this and we want to do one other thing to it. Now, one of the things I've noticed with holograms is, at least in movies and stuff, is that they're brighter around the edges where everything's dense, and then they're more transparent towards the middle when you're looking straight at it. So to get that effect, we've got a node that we can use. It's called a Fresnel node. So type in Fresnel, and there's a similar node in Unreal. We'll have to use that one to build that shader there, but just for now in here, if I pipe this into the emission, basically what you'll see is that it's darker in the center and brighter towards the edges. So we can also use another node called the layer weight node. And this gives a Fresnel value as well. But it also gives this facing value, which is another one. It's a bit more of a gradual fall off, I find, than the Fresnel, which is nice. Can be really useful in Eevee or in cycles. But anyways, if we grab a color ramp node and stick this on the outside of it and switch that to ease, it should give us a better fall off. Now we can change the IOR value. This is the official, it's like the index of refraction values. So you can actually look up objects and find out what their IOR value is, like water, or all these other objects. But we actually have it already built in here to our principled BSDF. And that's really, really great because it means you don't have to plug all this stuff in and build your shader from the ground up. But if you change this value, basically you're going to get a different level of Fresnel. So we can just pull that back until we've got something that looks about right. All right, now I want to make sure I don't go full black because I never want to be fully transparent. So I'm going to bring this up a bit, and I'm going to multiply these values together. So I'm going to grab a mix RGB, and I'll pipe this here. I'll switch it to multiply. I'll stick this one in here. I'll go ahead and click clamp, and I'll turn the factor all the way up. Now this is going to multiply this down to more or less 0 unless I bring it up. So now we just have a nice sort of subtle effect. I can also take this out of emission. We don't need that there anymore. Go. I feel like my IOR is probably a bit too small, so I'll pull it back some. And then another thing that's going to help our hologram is if we have a sort of base transparency to the whole thing. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to add in one more mix RGB node. Once you just set it to mix, and we can just put this down, just back off that factor to something really low, and now you can see it's going to work. Now I feel like I'm a bit too harsh with my edge here with my Fresnel. I ended up just switching to the layer weight node. It just gives a nicer fall off in Eevee, and I'm not going to use the Fresnel node here. I've also changed my wireframe pixel size to 0.05, and I think that looks really good. Okay, last thing we could do is we could maybe add some static into this. So if we just go noise and increase the scale way up to something like 100, and then create a color ramp node. Plug that in. Another mix RGB node. And we can, maybe we'll add this one in. And then back off the top values a bit. Turn it up so we can see it, maybe 200. So yeah, it kind of just creates like a bit of like a staticky kind of look. Yeah, there you can see it a bit better. We do have to bake this out as a texture, so if we go too small, we're going to lose that detail unless we do like some kind of crazy 4K massive texture thing. So it may not be worth it, but have a look. You can decide for yourself for your project what works well. I think I'm going to keep mine in. I think I like the little bit of static. So great. So there's our hologram material. You can see it's emitting in our scene, lighting things. It's really awesome. All right. Now, the idea that I wanted to do with this was to actually take our room, and I'm actually going to delete my sphere. Okay, so what I want to do is actually select my room, hit Shift-D. I've got a new room now. I'm going to get rid of the particle system on this one, and I'm going to scale this room right down. And I'm going to put it in the table. I'm going to turn our little entrance around so it's facing us. I'll just make it a little bit smaller than the table itself. Make sure it's lined up well. Then I'm going to take this table and I'm going to Shift-D, grab it up, scale it down. So we're basically making a mini version of our room. Looks about right. And now what we can do is on both of these, we can just place our hologram material. I'll pop it onto this one, and I'll pop it onto this one. Now if I go back to rendered mode, you'll see we got this really nice, cool hologram effect. Now I'm going to get rid of the subdivision surface because you see it affects the shader. I like that basic geometry look a bit better. So yeah, now we have our room floating in the hologram display. Pretty sick. All right, so here's the idea. I think I want to do something where we've got like this kind of like beeper thing, like a sensor. Something's outside and it's getting closer. And I wanted to get right up to the door on this hologram. And then I want the hologram to like shut off and the lights to go out and then to cut to black. And we kind of, leave it there. We'll see. I'm tempted to go further and have the door open and like have something there, but then it sort of opens up a whole nother can of fish. So maybe what I'll do is I'll do this series up to this point where, we have, the bleeper thing appears at the door and then the hologram shuts off and then we know the door's about to open and we cut to black before it does. And we'll see how popular this series is. If, everyone's really into this whole VR thing and really wants to see this one continue, maybe we'll do another one. Cause it could be a nice series to do like, some kind of like bounty hunter robot on the other side of this door and the door opens and there it is. And he comes into the room and we could animate it and do all this stuff. But that's like a whole nother series just to do that because it's really takes a lot of time. So what we'll do is we'll end this one at the point where the door's about to open, because that feels like, I don't know, a good cliffhanger. And then we'll see what happens. We'll see if this one has crazy views, and then I'll go, all right, everyone wants to do it. Let's do it. All right, cool. So let's do a little bit more. So first thing we want to do next is we can go ahead and set up I'll do two things actually. I'll set up a camera, because I know some of you won't be doing the VR bit, and you're just going to end here in Eevee. So we'll set up a camera and animate a camera. So we've got like an Eevee version of the scene, and then we'll do the VR stuff as well. So we kind of have like two versions of the same scene. So let's go ahead and add a camera. So I'm going to add a camera to my scene. There it is on the outside. I'll just close down my group so I can see everything. I'll put the camera in the lights group. I'll call this lights and camera. I'll jump into my camera view, and I will set my camera to lock camera to view, and I'll just zoom out, get into position. There we go. Now I'm going to take my camera settings, and I'm going to switch this to like a 24 mil. And I'm also going to change the size of our screen. We're going to make it cinema. So go 1080, because I'm going to keep my y-axis at 1080. We're going to multiply this by 2.35, which is the cinema aspect ratio, or one of the cinema aspect ratios. I'm going to undo lock camera to view and zoom in a bit so it fills my frame. And then I'm also going to, let's see, what else? Let me grab it back on the X, see how far back we can go. Yeah, that's not far enough. So we're going to need a wider angle of view. Might go really far out with this one, like a 14 mil, which should give us enough space. We can always use the clipping plane as well with the camera. So it has its own clipping values here. So we could do that if, we're clipping through the wall. That's perfectly acceptable. But anyways, I think this is going to look pretty good. So yeah, there it is. We're clipping through the wall. So I'm going to just clip through like that. All right, cool. Now with the camera, one of the cool things you could do in Eevee is depth of field. So we can turn that on. And if I just go back to rendered view, and to get depth of field to work, you need to change your f-stop. So you need to set it something really low. The lower you go, the more depth of field you get. So if we go like 0.01, the scene's going to go way out of focus. And then we can, zoom our focus to wherever it is that we want. And you can pick an object in the scene if you want to have an exact focal point. So like I could pick the hologram object, and now that's going to be in focus. And if we, zoom in and stuff, everything else is going to get blurrier and blurrier. If I go crazy with my f-stop, you can really see the effect and how it's working. So anyways, we can just keep that on a little bit as like a subtle thing. I'll try 0.01, and I'm actually just going to use the focal distance instead. All right. Now, let's, another thing to do to speed our scene up is up to here at the top with the little camera. If you go down to, where is it? Simplify, and tick that on, and then open this up and just make max subdivision 0. What it's going to do is it's going to take all the objects in our scene that have a subdivision surface modifier, and it's going to change them so that they're not working anymore, basically. So it's going to decrease the amount of geometry in our scene. So now we can move around a lot easier, and that's going to help just speed us up a touch. All right, great. Now let's get an animation going for this camera. So with my camera selected, I'm going to just map something out. So maybe we could start up here. That could be kind of cool. I might increase my clipping plane a bit on this so that we can actually get up in here. Do like a camera, like a slow reveal maybe. So let's go back to 0 on our timeline, and I'll hit I, set a keyframe for my rotation and my position. I'll go to the end, so frame 250, and I'm just going to come down like this. And oops, too far. Might even come around on an angle a little bit, something like that, and then hit another keyframe for us there. And so we can preview this a bit quicker. I can go back in here and turn off bloom and screen space reflection. So I can also change my viewport rendering down to something lower, like 5, and all that's going to help speed up. We're not going to get real time, but it's still going to be good. So now we got this nice kind of cinematic reveal of our really cool scene. We could even just switch to solid view to get a real good sense of what our shot's like. Yeah, cool. Now what I want to do is have this actual holotable come on. So we need to animate a couple of values. So we're going to animate first the base here. So if I select that, our hologram table, go to our materials, and we want this thing to animate. So I'm going to open up my shader editor. Here we go. And we're going to affect the emission. So what we can do is we can actually just animate this directly. So think about when we want it on. So I might have it on here, right at frame 100. So I'm going to hover over the emission color, and I'm going to hit I, and it'll draw this yellow box around it. And that's how you know it's working. So you've got this keyframe set. And then I'm going to go back a little bit, maybe to like frame 80 or something, and I'll click on it, and I'll just drag it down so it's no longer emitting, and I'll hit I again. Now you'll see it slowly comes on. And so now maybe what we'll do is when we get to right about here, let's say 150, that's when we'll have our hologram appear. So we'll do the same thing. We'll just select the hologram material. And we want to, instead of the emission, this time we want to actually make the alpha disappear. So we need to have like a base alpha value that we're using to control this. So what we can do, the easiest thing is just multiply the whole alpha by 0 to get rid of it. So if I pull up a value node and I pull up a math node, what I can do is pipe my color in, switch this to multiply. I can clamp it. If I just go 1 and pipe this back to the alpha, you'll see that once it processes, everything looks fine. It's all good. Nothing's changed. But if we set this to 0, then it's fully transparent. So we could just animate this value. We don't really need this. It's sort of redundant, I guess. But anyways, so we'll make this set a keyframe there. And then we'll go back to like frame 30, and I'll set this to 0 and hit I. Now, if we jump back, go full screen on our animation, you can see we're going to slowly come down into our scene like this. And then that's going to come on. And then our hologram's going to come on. Nice reveal. All right, and that wraps it up for today. That's as far as we can go with the scene, but stay tuned because we're going to be continuing to progress this thing. Next episode, what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be, I've reordered these episodes a little bit actually kind of from this point on. So you'll notice a little bit of difference in terms of like where we've gotten to in the model in some of these episodes. I'll just explain. Next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to go into animation. So we're going to go ahead and finish up. We've got a few more modeling details we're going to do on the scene, just a few little polish touches, and then we're going to do our animation just for the blinking light thing and the hologram sort of coming on. And I'm going to have some animation to that, some motion to that, so that we can demonstrate how can bring that over to Unreal. But we won't worry about that in the next episode. We'll just get everything animated and we'll get the scene locked off, and we'll talk about how we bring animation into Unreal just a little bit, just to kind of prep you on it. But it's still going to be a Blender focused episode. Then after that, what we're going to do is we're going to do a deep dive into UV unwrapping and UV layouts, and then also how to bake out materials. Now, this is just really useful for all kinds of applications within Blender and outside of Blender. So it's a really important skill to note. So again, that's going to be a big Blender focused episode. We're going to be prepping everything to bring our materials out to Unreal. But again, it's really just Blender specific stuff. So anyways, I hope you're learning a lot through this, really enjoying the series, getting a lot out of it. Please let me know any questions you've got in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this episode, hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. If you want to find out when the next episode comes, then ring that bell so you get the notifications as well. And I'll see you in the next episode. So yeah, have a great week, and I will catch you next time. Bye.